Look around this city. Every morning, thousands wake to the same sound, a piercing electronic chime, not an alarm of purpose, a summons to a digital cage. Their first conscious act is not to breathe, not to think, but to react. To swipe open a flood of other people's agendas, other people's crises, other worlds' noise. They surrender their morning mind, the most pristine, creative, and focused mind they will have all day before they have even chosen to stand. This is not intelligence. It is intellectual surrender before the day has begun. Let me be clear. The battle for your day is won or lost in the first 60 minutes. Smart people understand this. They do not let their devices dictate the terms of that battle. They never give a screen, glowing with the unresolved chaos of yesterday, the manufactured outrage of the news cycle, the curated perfection of a stranger's life, the power to write the first sentence of their new day. Why? Because when you begin by consuming the world's disorder, you import that disorder into your own psyche. You start from a position of deficit, of reaction. Your mind is not a fortress. It is a billboard for whatever advertisement of anxiety the algorithm has chosen for you. Consider the alternative: a room, silent, the faint gray light of dawn at the window, your own breath, steady, your own thoughts, assembling themselves without competition. That space, that quiet is not empty. It is fertile ground. It is where you decide who you are today, before the world tells you who you should be. It is where you set your intention, alone with the architecture of your own mind. You might stare at a wall. In that stillness, a solution to a problem that plagued you for weeks suddenly clarifies. You might move, stretching sore muscles, feeling the simple, animal fact of being alive in a body. You might write 3 things you will not compromise on before sunset. This is an active, sovereign act. You are building your internal citadel, brick by brick, before the siege of the day begins. The principle is the same when darkness falls. The last hour before sleep is not a void to be filled with frantic, flickering light. It is not for numbing the mind with a shallow stream of content until consciousness fails. That is not rest. That is cognitive poisoning. You are pouring stimulants, drama, conflict, blue light that screams daytime to your primal brain, onto a mind that needs to descend, to process, to repair. You are handing your subconscious a bag of scattered, sharp-edged images and telling it to make sense of them for 8 hours. No wonder you wake feeling unsettled, as if you've been running all night. Smart people guard this threshold with the same vigilance. The night is for integration, for review. What worked today? What did not? What single action tomorrow will make everything else easier? This is not a time for the internet's answers. It is a time for your own questions. It is a gentle disengagement from the external grid, a deliberate cooling of the engines. You might read pages from a physical book, the kind that requires linear thought, that allows for reflection in the spaces between paragraphs. You might simply sit and let the day's events settle, like silt in a glass of water, until the water is clear again. This practice does not just give you better sleep, it gives you closure. It allows you to end the day on your terms, not as a passive consumer who simply collapsed. This rule, first hour and last hour is sacred device-free territory, is the foundation of a disciplined mind. It creates a buffer of autonomy between you and the chaos. It says, my attention is not a public resource to be mined by the first notification. My peace is not an afterthought. My morning is for construction. My evening is for dissolution and repair. Without this buffer, you are perpetually off balance, always responding, always catching up to a timeline set by others. You are living in their rhythm, not your own. Start tomorrow. When the chime sounds, silence it, and do not reach for the glowing rectangle. Reach for the stillness instead. Build your day from the inside out. That is how you take back your mind. That is how you win the first battle, the only battle that truly matters. Now, consider the day itself. You have fortified your borders at dawn and at dusk, but the true war is fought in the vast open plains of the hours in between. Here, a more insidious enemy waits, not one that crashes through the gates, but one that seeps in, silently, under the guise of convenience, of boredom, of a single, harmless minute. It is the endless scroll, the unplanned plunge into a digital stream where you are not the hunter, but the prey. Let me show you the mechanism. You have a question, a simple, practical question. You reach for your device to find the answer. But to reach the answer, you must pass through a gauntlet. A notification winks. A headline screams. An image, carefully calibrated to trigger a response, flashes by. You swat the first one away. The second. But the third, it hooks something. A curiosity, a worry, a distant memory. You tap. And just like that, you are no longer seeking an answer. You are being led. You are on a path designed by architects of attention who understand the chemistry of your brain better than you do. The stream has you, and it is flowing in one direction, downward. This is not learning. This is not relaxation. This is consumption without purpose. It is the mental equivalent of wandering into a warehouse full of sugary snacks and stuffing handfuls into your mouth, not out of hunger, but because the packaging is bright and your hand is idle. You feel full, but you are malnourished. You have consumed hours, but you have produced nothing. You have gathered fragments of 100 narratives, but lost the thread of your own. Smart people recognize this trap for what it is, a voluntary surrender of agency. They never engage in unplanned, endless scrolling because they understand the cost. The cost is not just time, though that is precious enough. The cost is the quality of your own mind. A mind fed on a diet of reactions, hot takes, and fragmented spectacle becomes brittle. It loses its capacity for deep, linear thought. It begins to crave the next hit of novelty, the next spike of outrage or awe. It becomes a jittery thing, unable to sit in silence with a single complex problem, because it has been trained to flee from any moment of stillness into the next flicker of stimulus. So what is the alternative? Intentionality. It is the difference between drifting and navigating. Before you open an app, before you type a web address, you state the mission. You speak it, if only to yourself. I am opening this to read one article on market trends. I am checking this platform for 10 minutes to see updates from my team. You set a parameter, a goal, and more importantly, you set a limit. You are the operator of the tool, not a passenger on the ride. And when the mission is complete, you stop. You close the tab. You put the device down. You feel the impulse to just see what's next. That is the trigger. That is the moment you must exercise discipline. That itch is not curiosity, it is conditioning. You do not scratch it, you turn away. You return to the physical world, to the task you chose, to the silence you now must fill with your own thoughts. This is where creation begins, in the void left when consumption ends. Boredom is not the enemy, it is the necessary precursor to genuine thought. When you deny yourself the easy escape of the digital feed, you force your mind to entertain itself, to solve a problem, to imagine a possibility, to simply be with an idea and follow it to its conclusion. You replace the passive intake of other people's finished products with the active, often messy, process of making your own. You write a paragraph instead of reading 100 tweets. You sketch a plan instead of watching a tutorial on planning. You think. This is how you rebuild a disciplined mind. You replace infinite consumption with focused creation. You trade the shallow certainty of constant input for the deep, sometimes uncomfortable work of output. Do not be a terminal in the network. Be a generator. The world has enough spectators. It is starved for architects. Tomorrow, when your hand moves toward that screen out of habit, ask the question first, what is my mission? And when the mission is done, have the strength to walk away. That simple act of turning your back on the endless stream is a declaration of independence. It is you choosing your own thought over their noise. That is how you reclaim your focus. That is how you become more than a consumer. You become a threat. Now you have secured the borders of your day. You have taken back your attention from the endless scroll. But all of that, the fortress of the morning, the discipline of focus, is built upon a foundation. And that foundation is not made of thought or willpower alone. It is made of flesh and blood and bone. You ignore this foundation at your peril. Smart people never do. They never neglect the fundamentals of physical energy, because they know the mind is not a ghost in a machine. It is the luminous product of the machine itself, a machine that requires fuel, maintenance, and motion. This is the most basic truth and the most commonly betrayed. We treat our bodies as inconvenient luggage. We drag them from task to task, fueling them with the cheapest, fastest combustible we can find, neglecting their maintenance until they scream in protest, expecting them to carry a brilliant mind while operating on fumes and rust. You cannot outthink a failing engine. You cannot strategize on a battery at 1%. Consider sleep, not as a passive state of inactivity, but as the most critical, active repair shift of your life. Every night, your brain is not shutting down. It is entering the workshop. It is draining the metabolic toxins that accumulate during the day's thinking. It is welding the memories of what you learned into the structure of who you are. It is recalibrating the emotional scales. When you shortchange sleep, you are not being tough. You are showing up to a battle with a sword you deliberately blunted and armor you intentionally cracked. You are decision-making with a brain swimming in its own waste. That fog, that irritability, that lack of clarity, that is not stress. That is biochemical poisoning. Smart people do not negotiate with sleep. They defend it. It is the non-negotiable keystone that holds the arch of the day together. Then, there is the fuel. You would not pour sugar into the gas tank of a precision vehicle and expect peak performance. Yet you do this to yourself constantly. Food is not just entertainment. It is not just comfort. It is information. Every bite sends a cascade of instructions to your cells. Inflame or repair, spike and crash or sustain, fog or clarify. Eating poorly is not a minor vice. It is actively choosing to run your cognitive engine on low-grade fuel that gums up the works. It is choosing mental static over signal. The clarity of your thought, the stability of your mood, the very energy you have to pursue your goals, they are forged in your gut. You think with your whole body. Feed it like you depend on it, and you must move. This city is a monument to stillness. We sit, we stare, we contract. The body is built for dynamic tension, for exertion and release. When you cage it, you cage the mind that lives within it. Movement is not just for the physique. It is a cognitive event. It pumps not just blood, but cerebrospinal fluid, washing the brain. It triggers the release of chemicals that are the natural antidotes to anxiety and stupor. It is a rhythmic, physical meditation that breaks the loops of obsessive thought. A walk is not a break from thinking. It is often where the best thinking gets done. The body in motion stirs the mind into new patterns, shakes loose solutions that stagnant sitting will never reveal. These are not lifestyle tips. They are operational prerequisites. They are the fundamentals: sleep, nutrition, movement. Ignore them, and your grand plans are castles built on sand. The finest morning ritual will crumble under the weight of exhaustion. The most disciplined focus will shatter when your blood sugar plummets and your brain screams for a quick hit of sugar. You will lack the resilience to handle friction, the patience to see a complex task through. You will be reactive, volatile, weak. Treat your physical self not as a pet you occasionally remember to feed, but as the primary asset in your mission. It is the vehicle, the weapon, and the armor. You would not send a soldier into the field without checking his kit. Do not send your mind into the day without securing its foundation. Mastery begins here, in the silent cellular world, the world of rhythm, of repair, of raw, uncomplicated power. Neglect this, and you are sabotaging yourself before you even begin. Honor it, and you build a mind of steel, and a body that can carry its weight. That is how you ensure your will is not undone by a whisper of fatigue. That is how you build endurance. That is how you last. But there is another camouflage, another silent thief. You have the energy, you have the focus, yet still the day can slip through your fingers, not in idleness, but in a frenzy of motion. This is the trap of activity without direction. Smart people see it clearly. They never confuse busyness with productivity. They understand that to be in motion is not the same as to make progress. A whirlwind can spin with tremendous force and go precisely nowhere. Look at the day ahead of you, a landscape of tasks, demands, and potential. The undisciplined mind sees a field and feels compelled to run across every inch of it, to touch every blade of grass, to exhaust itself in the sheer act of coverage. It confuses expenditure of energy with achievement. It answers emails with a warrior's intensity. It attends meetings with solemn duty. It ticks boxes on a list with the satisfaction of a conqueror. But at sunset, it stands in a field it has trampled flat, having harvested nothing of value. It has been busy. It has not been effective. The difference is a matter of targeting, of understanding leverage. A single, precise action can unlock a door that 100 frantic C motions will only rattle. Smart people ask a ruthless question before they act. Does this move the needle? They are archaeologists of impact, sifting through the rubble of potential tasks to find the one artifact, the one lever that shifts the entire structure. They know that 80% of your results will come from 20% of your actions. Their discipline lies not in doing everything, but in identifying that vital 20% and defending it with their lives from the encroachment of the trivial 80%. The world will eagerly supply you with the trivial 80%. It will send you emails asking for things that do not matter. It will create meetings to discuss the possibility of future discussions. It will invent procedures and forms and approvals that serve only to simulate progress. This is the theater of busyness. It is performance. It is designed to make you feel like you are contributing while carefully steering you away from anything that might actually change the status quo. To be productive is often to be quietly subversive. It means turning away from the loud, collective choreography of busy work and toward the silent, solitary work of actual creation. This requires a second, even more difficult skill, the courage to do nothing, or rather, the courage to appear to be doing nothing while you are engaged in the most critical work of all, thinking. Strategic thought looks like idleness to the untrained eye. Staring out a window, walking without a destination, sitting with a blank page. This is where you separate the signal from the noise. This is where you connect the dots that the busy mind, rushing from task to task, will never see. Do not fear the empty space in your calendar. That space is not a void to be filled with the first available distraction. It is the command center. It is where you plot the course, not just row the boat. Your daily list then should not be a monument to your endurance. It should be a laser guide. If you have 3 items on it, and each one is a genuine force multiplier, you have had a day of staggering productivity. If you have 30 items, all neatly checked off, you have likely spent the day as a clerk in the bureaucracy of your own life. The feeling at the end of the day should not be exhaustion. It should be the clean fatigue of a job done, a weight lifted, a wall demolished. It should be the satisfaction of a sniper, not the exhaustion of a leaf blower. So tomorrow, when you make your list, be a brutal editor. Not what can I do, but what must I do to change something. Protect the time for those things with a ferocity that seems unreasonable to the busybodies of the world. Let the minor things scream for attention. Let them go unanswered. Your mission is not to be responsive. Your mission is to be impactful. Master this, and you transform from a reactor into a director. You are no longer swept along by the current of demands. You are the one who digs the channel. You are not busy. You are decisive. And that is a completely different kind of power. Yet even the most carefully planned day, the most disciplined mind, and the strongest body can be undone in an instant, not by a failure of strategy, but by a failure of social physics, by a single, unguarded interaction. The world is not just a landscape of tasks. It is a web of people, and people are conduits of emotion, demands, and agendas. To walk into that web without a plan is to walk into a room blindfolded and hope you do not collide with the walls. Smart people understand this. They never enter social or professional interactions without a frame. They never let the dynamic be set solely by the other side. What does this mean? It does not mean manipulation. It means sovereignty. It means deciding before you speak the first word what the purpose of this exchange is and what your boundaries are. It is the psychological equivalent of knowing the floor plan of a building before you enter. Without this frame, you default to a dangerous position, the people pleaser, the agreeable ghost who absorbs moods, accepts unreasonable demands, and walks away from encounters feeling drained, used, and off balance, having donated their energy and gained nothing. Consider the simple request. A colleague asks for your time on a project that is not yours, on a timeline that is not reasonable. The people pleaser hears the request as a command. Their mind immediately seeks to comply, to smooth, to avoid the friction of no. They calculate the cost in their own time, their own priorities, and they pay it, hoping for goodwill in return. But they have just broadcast a signal. My priorities are negotiable. My time is cheap. My yes has no cost. You have taught them how to treat you, and the lesson is that you can be used. Now, the person with a frame enters the same request. Their first thought is not, how do I say yes? But what is this interaction about, and what are my terms? They have a preset boundary. My core project time is sacred. Their frame is, I am a collaborator, not a rescuer. So they might respond, I can review a one-page summary Thursday afternoon, but I cannot join the working group. They have engaged, but on their terms. They have defined the geometry of the help. They have remained in their own mission, not been conscripted into someone else's. This is not being difficult, this is being clear. Clarity is a kindness. It prevents the slow-burning resentment of the coerced. Yes. This applies to the emotional realm just as powerfully. You encounter someone radiating frustration, anger, or neediness. Without a frame, you become a sponge. You absorb their emotional state. You feel obligated to fix it, to maxi it, or to absorb its toxicity, to keep the peace. You leave, carrying their burden. But with a frame, you can acknowledge the emotion without adopting it. Your frame is, I am a witness, not a target. I'm a sounding board, not a sink. You can say, I hear this is frustrating for you, without internalizing the frustration. You maintain your own emotional center of gravity. You offer empathy without enmeshment. Setting this frame is an act of silent, internal declaration before a word is spoken. It is asking yourself, what is my goal here? What will I not do? What is my walk-away point? It is giving yourself permission to disengage, to say no, to redirect, or to end an interaction that has veered into toxic territory. It means you are not hostage to another person's mood or agenda. You are a participant by choice. This is not about building walls. It is about controlling the gates. It allows for genuine connection, because genuine connection can only happen between two sovereign entities. It prevents the slow psychic drain of 1,000 minor concessions that leave you depleted and wondering where your energy went. Your attention, your focus, your emotional resilience, they are finite resources. You cannot pour them into every open vessel that presents itself. So before your next conversation, your next meeting, your next encounter, pause, even for 3 seconds. Establish the frame. I am here to exchange information, not to receive a complaint. I am here to negotiate terms, not to make a friend. I am here to listen, but not to be deposed. Then enter. Protect your peace as fiercely as you protect your time. You are not a public utility. You are a strategic asset. Guard your gates. That is how you ensure you are not slowly bled dry by the demands of the world. That is how you remain standing when others have been pulled down. All of it, the guarded mornings, the intentional focus, the physical foundation, the targeted action, the framed interactions. It is a system, a discipline. But a discipline, no matter how perfect, is only as good as its ability to adapt, to learn. A fortress with rigid, unmoving walls will eventually be outflanked. The final mistake, the one that unravels all the others, is to treat each day as an isolated event, a closed loop. You fight the same battles, make the same tactical errors, and wonder why you are not advancing. Smart people never make this error. They never end the day without a review, without a plan for tomorrow. This is the keystone habit that locks all the others into place. It is how you turn experience into intelligence. Think of the day as a mission. When the operatives return, do they simply scatter to their quarters? No. They gather in the dim light of the briefing room. They go over the maps. What was the objective? What was achieved? Where did we encounter unexpected resistance? What intelligence did we gather about the enemy's movements? What did we learn about our own capabilities? This is not a celebration. It is not a condemnation. It is forensic. It is a clinical extraction of data from the raw event of the day. You must do the same. In the quiet you have protected at day's end, you conduct the after-action report. And you do it with a ruthless focus on the system, not the self. The question is not, was I good or bad today? That is the drama of the ego. The question is, what worked, what did not, and why? Did the morning ritual hold, or did you reach for the phone at the first moment of boredom? If it held, what strength did that build? If it broke, what was the trigger? Was it a poorly defended border, or was the plan itself too rigid? Did your focus shatter in the afternoon? Was it the low-grade fuel you called lunch, or an interaction that drained your reserves because you entered it without a frame? This review is not for regret. Regret is a pointless emotion. It is a fog. This is for pattern recognition. You are looking for the fractures in your discipline so you can see the underlying stress points. You are hunting for the single decision that made a dozen later decisions easier. You are compiling a dossier on your own operating system. Without this, you are doomed to repeat. You will have the same argument with yourself tomorrow about the snooze button. You will lose focus at the same hour. You will say yes to the same type of draining request. You are a machine running the same faulty program on a loop, hoping for a different result. The review alone is diagnosis. The plan for tomorrow is the prescription. This is where you take the intelligence and apply it. It is not a sprawling to-do list. It is the strategic pivot. Based on what you learned today, what is the one single most important adjustment you will make tomorrow? Perhaps it is as simple as, tomorrow, the phone stays in another room until I have completed my first 3 priority tasks. Or, the 3 p.m. energy drop. Tomorrow, I will walk for 10 minutes at 2:45. No negotiation. Or, I was pulled into a 2-hour debate that went nowhere. Tomorrow, for any meeting, my first question is, what is the desired outcome? And if there isn't one, I will not attend. This nightly ritual does 2 profound things. First, it grants you closure. It puts the day to bed, intellectually and emotionally. You have processed it. You have extracted its lessons. You are not carrying its unresolved chaos into your sleep. You have filed it. This alone creates a profound psychological peace. The day is complete. Second, and more importantly, it builds compound interest on your discipline. Each day's review sharpens the plan for the next. Each small adjustment is a tweak to the code. Over time, these are not just corrections, they are evolutions. You are not just avoiding mistakes. You are architecting a more resilient, more effective version of your own operating procedures. You are moving from fighting fires to designing a fireproof structure. So when the last task is done, and the quiet descends, do not flee from the day. Confront it. Sit with it. Interrogate it. Then, with the clarity you have earned, write the orders for the dawn. A single sentence. The primary objective. The critical adjustment. This is the final discipline. The discipline of learning from yourself. It ensures you are not just enduring your days, but upgrading your capacity with each one. It turns time from an enemy that erodes you into an ally that forges you. End tonight not with exhaustion, but with analysis. Not with collapse, but with a command for the morning. That is how you break the loop. That is how you become more than what you were yesterday.